Was there one thing that you mentioned routine a moment ago, like teaching the
Sure.
routine. Was there one thing that you can remember that maybe clicked and caused like a huge jump where you were like, oh, wow, like we might be on a path towards something special here? Or was it just always just a constant evolution and improvement?
Oh, I'm going to cop out and say it's both, because he always trended in the right direction. Even college coaches recruiting him saying he was always getting better every 6 months when they looked at his scores and when they trend his trends, right? If we looked at like mental emotional skills, very, very fortunate. He has two of the best parents you could have, which is a key part of this and how Collin developed. Collin is a very intelligent young man, a hard worker. He had a lot of some of those intangibles from such a great environment. I felt I could help cultivate some of those things. A couple things come up to me is what makes him, I don't know if difference is the right word, but hey, he's elite, is he loves competition. And he also has a growth mindset. So he always wanted to put himself in challenging situations to compete. Whether it was, I always competed against him in every single lesson, by the way. The last 5 minutes was always competition. And I wanted to see how he dealt with that. Well, he took it on. He wanted to beat my butt every single time. Awesome. Okay, great. And if he didn't win, it wasn't make excuses. It wasn't complaining. It was, okay, I got to get better. Now, that's not always seen with junior golfers, okay? Yes, they may want to compete, but if they lose, it's like, well, it's not fair, Rick. You're older, you're a professional. I never heard excuses from him. I only heard somebody who wanted to get better. So that part of him, I, of course, wanted to keep cultivating this learning mindset and curiosity and, hey, what did we do on this tournament? What could we do a little better? What did you do well? And he dove right into it. So he trusted me. His parents trusted me. And so we always had this constant feedback loop that was occurring that wasn't about short-term fixes. It was about long-term development. And again, not every golfer I've worked with has embraced that mentality.
You hit on so many things just now. We could spend the next 2 hours talking about your answer just now. Absolutely love that. And I think I might have mentioned to you earlier that I just published my first book called Finding Intangibles. And it's really surrounding a lot of the things you just talked about. And you talked about, the parents and the influence that they had on him. You talked about the competition and the competitive nature in him since early on. And I love it, growth mindset, which was kind of like the origin of what gave me the idea to write my book. And I think you see these, you're talking about an individual sport or an individual performer, but these were the same intangibles that led to elite performers in football and also the great teams that I was a part of as well. They embraced all of these aspects that you just mentioned. Like I said, we could talk about this all day. I do want to ask, you mentioned his parents. And you don't have to get too deep into specifics, but like, what was that influence like? Were they just kind of hands off and allowing him to be on his own journey? Were they holding him to high standards? Were they just very supportive? Like, describe their influence on him.
Yeah, it is impressive because it was a little bit of both, of where they supported him. They saw how passionate and how much he loved the sport. So they were going to do everything they could to support that, right? Yet what I remember talking to his father, Blaine, who showed up to every single golf lesson. Now, a lot of your listeners would say, oh my gosh, the golf didn't say a word. He asked questions. He said, oh, Rick, what do you mean by that? Oh, okay, great. Because he wanted to remind Collin when they did go practice, oh yeah, remember Coach Rick said this. He never debated me. He never said, oh my gosh, Collin didn't break 80. What happened? And get into results. He saw where we were going. He trusted me in that. And yet I think his big thing is that if Collin wanted to be the best junior golfer or whatever, I think all he did was believe that Collin should put the time in and not be forced to do it, but say, hey, if Collin wants to be good, okay, I'll drop you off at the golf course for a few hours. And so, but never forced Collin to do anything. And a lot of it, again, is about their character. It wasn't about winning things. It's about how you handle things. And that's, again, it's a godsend when you're in that environment. So parents were supportive. They did what they could to help him, because golf is a very expensive sport to play at a national junior level. They certainly allowed him that, but they saw the love he had for the game. They saw his work ethic came very intrinsically. It was never forced. And so they kept supporting it, and they trusted me along that journey.